After several failed login attempts, Mike read the error message a second time. What could this mean? He checked his login details and they were correct. After trying to enter his login details for the final time, a new message appeared on the screen. His website was hacked. Mike smiled as he reflected on what he had just read. Interesting, he thought before finishing the rest of the chapter. It was 8:30 in the evening and Mike had to leave for work, so he decided to borrow the book from the local library. The old librarian was a good friend and knew Mike because he spent a lot of time in the library. They chatted for a short while and soon Mike was on his way home. On getting home, Mike ate his dinner and was working on his laptop when it caught his eyes. It was a piece of memory and one of the proudest moments of his life. Standing on the shelf was a trophy he received for winning a writing competition back in high school. For a brief moment, Mike was lost in thought as he recalled how much he enjoyed writing. Whether it was the book he had just read or the trophy on the wall, something had stirred up the fire in him. Mike left for work that day, determined to start working towards his goal of someday becoming an international bestseller. Mike worked in a sortation center as a parcel inspector, and although he didn't earn much, it was enough for him to get by and even save some money. It was just a temporary job he did to keep busy while figuring his life out. But today, while working, Mike couldn't stop thinking about his goal. He stopped working as he imagined his name on the front page of the New York Times. Mike smiled. He couldn't wait for his shift to be over. That morning, after Mike ended his night shift, he walked down to a takeaway restaurant to grab a quick breakfast before heading home. Mike sat down at his desk and set out a plan to achieve his goal one step at a time. His plan was to first get a following by starting a blog, then grow the email list with loyal fans, and eventually use the content from the blog to write his first book. He didn't have it all figured out just yet, but he was determined to go ahead. Mike had broken down his goal into actionable steps, and his first action was to hire someone to build him a blog. So, after searching, Mike finally hired a freelancer who would do the job. Later, Mike took a short walk to think clearly. He needed a niche, and he finally settled on productivity. Mike believed in using strategies to achieve his goals, and he wanted to share some of the strategies he knew with his readers. When the site was ready, Mike sat at his computer beaming with pride as he typed the first letters of his first blog post. By the time he finished, Mike checked the time on his phone. He still had some time to work on his blog before heading out to do his job. When he finished writing the blog, Mike published it, and then he shared the link to his new blog with friends on social media. The next day, Mike hurried back home, eager to see the feedback from his first blog post. Unfortunately, it wasn't what he had expected. There were a few visits to the website and even fewer comments. Mike had expected instant success, but instead he felt like a failure. Worried that he wasn't doing something right, Mike did some research that day and came across a piece of information on how to use keywords to generate traffic. Quickly, he paid for the software and generated some keywords with which he used to write his next blog post. Over the next few weeks, Mike monitored his blog closely, and while the number of his email subscribers started to increase, he still wasn't happy with how fast his website was growing. Mike really wanted to grow his website faster, so he kept looking for some strategies to do that. He soon came to the conclusion that he should hire a content writer who could write for him. This would help him to create more content and give him more time to focus on other things. He again did some research and quickly hired a freelancer for this job. For some time, it seemed like a great solution for easy success. But it didn't take long for him to realize that this strategy had its own downsides. People started to leave comments saying that his content had changed. Not willing to sacrifice his integrity, Mike decided to keep writing the blogs himself while still hoping to find a new strategy. One day at work, Mike got an idea for a new blog post, and he made a mental note of it so he wouldn't forget. After work, Mike had a quick breakfast and he sat down to write a new blog post. When he finished, Mike shared the link with his friends on social media. Feeling tired from working all night, Mike was about to go and take a nap when a new notification popped up on his screen. Someone had just replied to the link he shared. It was a new company offering their product to test it. Mike replied to his would-be savior, who promised to help him with a bot that could improve traffic to his blog. Cautious, Mike researched traffic bots, and to his surprise, it was true. The company had promised to give Mike the bot for free since he was testing it to see how effective it was. It was a pilot phase of the project, and they had reached out to Mike to see if he would be willing to try it out on his blog. Mike was more than happy to try it out, believing it was a win-win situation for him. If it worked, that's great, and if not, he had nothing to lose. Mike reflected on his dreams. It wouldn't be so long now, he thought. Soon, he would be invited to talk shows and speak about his work. The traffic bot instantly increased his stats, but comments and subscribers stayed the same. He was happy to keep it on as he was hoping that people would soon come. He felt under pressure to keep up with writing more and more articles. After work each day, Mike had a habit of checking his website, reading the comments, and also doing some research for his next blog post. One day, Mike, for some reason, was not able to log into his website. After several failed login attempts, Mike read the error message a second time. What could this mean? He checked his login details and they were correct. After trying to enter his login details for the final time, a new message appeared on the screen. His website was hacked. Discouraged by what happened, Mike felt helpless. It was so hard to build a little community, and now it was gone completely. One day, Mike went to the cafe to grab a quick breakfast, and while there, he received a notification on his phone. It was an email from one of his early subscribers. "Hey Mike, what happened with your blog? I read your post every morning and it made my day better. You have to continue writing, man. Jay." Mike read the message over and over again. He was encouraged and wondered how many of his subscribers felt the same way. When he got home, Mike sent an email to all of his subscribers, not knowing what to expect. He then watched some TV before it was time to go to work. While Mike was working, he was getting notification after notification on his phone. After work, when he checked it out, there were dozens of messages from his fans. Inspired by the emails he received, Mike decided to start a new blog, despite the fact that he knew it would be a lot of work. But this time, he was going to be more careful. So instead of snooping around the web, Mike called a famous blogger to pick his brain, and surprisingly, he was willing to meet. A few days later, Mike met the blogger and told him about his challenges, and although the blogger gave him useful insights, it wasn't what Mike had been expecting. He was hoping for some secret that would explain the blogger's success, but there was nothing like that. While walking home, Mike kept on thinking. It didn't make sense, and even though the blogger had been honest, there was really nothing special. The more he thought about it, the harder it was to make sense of it. So Mike thought to himself, well, I will just have to put in the work. And as he said those words, he realized that it is work that makes all the difference. Mike got home that day happy he had met the blogger, because thanks to his meeting, he realized that work is the secret strategy that he needed to use. Inspired, Mike resumed his blogging, and this time he focused on the people, not the numbers, on making an impact rather than quick fame. He put in the work because he knew that there were many people that would benefit from his writing. The more he wrote, the better his writing became. It didn't take long for people to notice his blog. He was getting emails from his fans every day, and his email list was growing steadily. Most importantly, Mike was grateful for the fact that he had discovered the secret strategy that he was always looking for in his life, and that was simply the fact that if he wanted to achieve anything in life, he had to put in the work.